Our ancestors fought against the tide. But Zaitan's power was too great. We have learned from those defeats. We learned that no single nation can fight alone and succeed. The 5 races must stand together against their enemies and refuse to surrender. Heroes come together in glory, discovering new magic, new technology that will save our world.
Kevin and Nick, it is time to return once again to a thrilling world of massive multiplayer online role-playing games. Are you ready?
No.
Not really, no. Fucking hell, it's a big game.
Ah, son of a bitch. Took all the wind out of my sails.
You should give us more time to play on this, dude. I mean, like, you only gave us, 3 weeks extra.
Yeah, I'm afraid that any more than that, and we would, we could review this game, in December, maybe. We just put it out for our Game of the Year. Oh, yeah, Guild Wars 2. I forgot about that. Anyway, we're talking about Guild Wars 2 today, the sequel to what was one of the more unique MMOs to come out in the last, when did the first Guild Wars come out? 2005? So 15 years? Guild Wars 2 is an MMO created by ArenaNet and published by NCSoft, and it is very, very MMO-y as opposed to the first game. I don't know. Did either of you guys play Guild Wars 1?
I did not.
No?
Neither did I.
Well, just for comparison, I'll talk briefly about it. Guild Wars 1 had an interesting system where everybody that was on a particular server would be in a town or in a common area, but then when you went out into the world, it was like you took your own little party of people and you went out and kind of did an instance version of the world. That's at least the way I remember it. They may have changed it later on, but when I remember originally playing it, it was interesting because you didn't have this world with people running around all over the place, but that is definitely not the case with Guild Wars 2. But since I didn't play the game really all that much, I'm going to go ahead and shut up and let Mr. Baird and Mr. Hodges take it from here. So, guys, why don't you tell me a little bit about what the Guild Wars 2 is all about?
Well, it's an MMORPG. I mean, obviously, and it's the first thing you got to mention about it, I think, is the fact that there's no monthly fee. Yeah. That's the very first thing you'll notice about this game is that nobody's asking you for your credit card as soon as you sign on.
Which is fantastic. I was actually really worried about that.
Right. Yeah, and you don't have to worry about it, paying for something that you're not going to play very often. And I was, I had heard good things about the original Guild Wars, and I had thought that, people at the time were sort of divided. A lot of people liked to play the original Guild Wars because there wasn't a monthly fee, and then people were playing World of Warcraft, and obviously World of Warcraft won out, and Guild Wars sort of died off. But I think
there was still some competition, I heard, reading the YouTube comments, just before Guild Wars 2 was released, sort of all these fanboys arguing that Guild Wars 2 was going to just pwn World of Warcraft all over the place.
Well, I think it may have. I think it's really good. And the fact that you don't have to pay a monthly fee for it really kind of throws it over the top.
I mean, that was the biggest strength, in my opinion, of the original Guild Wars, was that you bought this $150 game and you didn't feel like you had to milk, you didn't have that MMO tax where you sign up and you forget and you're like, what the fuck? I was going to buy a cheese. Oh, God damn it, World of Warcraft. I didn't even play you this month. Fuck off. So, I think there was still had a pretty fair amount of people on their servers because it was the sort of thing that even years after the game had come out, you could still install it. You could still log on, you could still go and play with the characters that you had there. So you never had to worry about losing a character that you put time into or losing any of that in-game progress. And I think that carrying that over to Guild Wars 2 is probably the single smartest thing that ArenaNet could have done in this case.
Yeah, it's really difficult to review an MMO and, go through every single piece of the game. If you've never played one before, I don't know what to tell you because I'm not going to sit here and tell you everything that you have to do in the game. But essentially, you have a variety of races. You pick the race that you want to be, and then you have a big variety of classes that you want to be as well. And, you enter into a zone within the game which is completely separate from another zone that you would choose if you were a different race. And
Well, let's. What are the races? Tell me about the different races in the game.
Oh my god!
Because that's one of the things I liked is that it wasn't just like, hey, orc and here's an orc and here's a dude and here's a troll and like, oh, okay.
There's some like cat people and dwarves.
Yeah, when you hear troll and that, at least that gives you some idea of what they are in your head. If I just mention, some weird creature name, you're just going to be imagining things. But
well, you've got okay. Let's see if I remember from the happy hour. You've got regular people.
Yes, you have weak ass humans.
There's the Dovahkiin from Skyrim. There's separate race, right?
There's the Char,
the demon cats,
right? There's the Azura,
which are the plant ladies,
right? You got your humans, your Sylvari, which are your little
Dobbies,
right? And then you got the Norn, which are kind of like your barbarian, basically.
Which is the Dovahkiin from Skyrim. That's what I'm saying, Kevin.
Well, all right, yes. Sorry. So, and then you have all of the different classes, your elementalist, your warrior, your ranger, your necromancer, your guardian, your thief, your engineer, and your mesmer, which is always that generic weird class at the end that they throw in to make it different. Every game's got one of those, like, oh, I'm going to be this weak thing that it was an afterthought, that somebody had to stick into the game. No, I don't know. I didn't play the mesmer.
Well, I was always more fascinated by the fact that there's a class called engineer. I was like, can you build some kind of medieval motorcycle or like an airplane or something?
Right. Your first quest is to build a bridge. You just got
oh, lame.
City planning. That's the class that I want to play.
They're building the aqueducts to the capital city. Wow.
Collector. So basically, I played a Sylvari necromancer. I also played the Char cat person in the happy hour. Mm-hmm. So if you want a good idea of what this game looks like, watch the happy hour. You get a good idea. It's hard. I mean, what do we want to do? Do we want to talk about the differences here? It's hard.
Let's start with some of the differences between other MMOs. I tell you what. I think the thing that folks need to know is probably just the difference between this and your standard MMO, which is that in a regular MMO you have 3 or 4 bars full of different abilities, different attacks, items, and stuff like this. Whereas in Guild Wars, you are limited to 2 sets of, is it 5? 2 sets of 5 abilities that you could switch out.
Yeah, I especially you could also switch. I mean, you'll have those 5, and there's a button right next to them where you can just switch to your other weapon, not just your offhand, but your whole your other gear. So you can have 5 and a whole other set of 5 if you want to, depending on what type of creature you're going to be running across, because you will run into some creatures that are going to be invulnerable to some of the things that you're trying to do, and you can actually switch between different types of weapons, and all of your skills are associated towards those weapons that you have.
Not to mention it's fucking annoying when you're fighting 5 different types of enemies at the same time, where some of them will have an axe and one guy will have a gun and shoot you. So you're constantly going back and forth trying to switch between a bow and arrow or a sword and a shield.
Yeah, humans have it rough.
What's that supposed to mean?
That's the part. I don't know. But so and then the other skills you sort of earn up, and you get to choose.
Kevin is trying not to call you like a whiny little girl, Nick, because he played a necromancer with 6 different horrifying inside out Hellraiser style creatures that just went and did his bidding every time he got into combat.
Dude, they raped the shit out of you. Seriously, it's like going to a football match and all these hooligans are just pummeling the crap out of you on the floor, and you don't know which weapon to switch to at the time.
Well, one of the things that I noticed when I was playing the game is that it does seem like the game puts a lot more emphasis on not purely kind of arcade action, but that it does put a lot of stock in dodging and positioning and moving around while you're attacking, so that it's not like you're just going to stand there and hit 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 without moving your guy around. That you do need to kind of move around and look about positioning yourself in different places to avoid certain enemy attacks, dodging out of the way and stuff like that. Is that
right? They do give you some dodge. I mean, if you double tap in a certain direction, you have a dodge meter, and you can actually dodge certain attacks. I didn't use it too much, because basically I'm just used to the MMORPG grind of going in there and just taking my hits. But it does. I mean, if the ground catches on fire, you should use it, not burn to death like I do. it's the combat system. The other main thing that we should bring up about the combat system is that when you play a regular MMO. And you get into combat with, say, a creature, generally you own that creature. It's your combat. And other people, if they're not in your group, aren't really supposed to jump in and sort of participate because either they're going to be more high-powered than you and steal the experience, or they're not going to earn any experience because you're going to kill it. In this game, everybody, no matter what your participation is, whoever just strikes the monster gets credit for the complete kill of the creature. Mm-hmm. The experience aren't divided.
And they're not.
You also get credit for participating. Like, it seems to reward you. Like, if you do work together as a team, it's very rewarding to the experience you get.
Well, but it sounds like, Kevin, what you're saying is that they give you experience, but they don't penalize the person who was originally attacking the creature.
Right. They don't penalize anyone. You could just go in and strike the creature once and run away, and you'll still get full credit for killing the creature, which may be lame in some respects, but at the same time, I think it's designed to be more social this way. I mean, it's sort of like you don't have to worry about the guy that you're in his way while he's having combat. I mean, I run up and I'll see somebody like fighting something, and I don't have any qualms about just coming in and assisting because it's not hurting him and it's not hurting me. You know, where we all can participate together, and I think that makes a big difference in the game. It makes it a lot more fun.
So what you're saying is that after, what has it been, 10, 15 years, that the MMO structure has come full circle, that we started being forced into groups together, and then WoW changed the formula so that we could play MMOs all by ourselves if we wanted to, and now Guild Wars is trying to bring people back together again 15 years later.
I think that's right. I think that somebody looked at this and said, well, you know, what is it about these games that aren't fun? And in a lot of ways, they improved on the things that were kind of a drag. I mean, there's just not a lot of grinding here either. I don't feel like I have to kill like 50 wolves or 100 vultures or something in order to progress. I mean, there's lots of things to do. There's different ways of earning experience, just uncovering things, going on missions, going to these vistas where you look around the map, going to these different people who kind of give you these little missions that you can do in their area. There's these world events that happen, which is like the whole zone that you're in will light up with these different areas that you have to participate in combat with. Plus, you got your standard PvP and that sort of thing. But the point is that there's so many different ways to earn up and get experience that you never really feel like you're just trying to earn that experience so you can just get to the next part of your mission. You're constantly sort of looking at the whole world as being this thing that you want to uncover everything in it because there's big bonuses when you do, and it really sort of unlocks a different level of fun that a lot of MMOs just aren't dealing with properly.
Fair enough. I tell you what, why don't you talk a little bit about those world events, because that's one of the things that I saw in this game in my short time with it that I hadn't really seen in very many other MMOs before. It seemed to be something that was pretty unique specifically to Guild Wars 2.
Well, I'm not sure when I say world event if we're talking about the same thing. I mean, basically what happens is there's just these events that come up that are happening in the zone that you're in that happen somewhat randomly and in different areas of the game depending. And they're all very different. I mean, it's not like a story that you instigate or something that you run across or it's just going to happen. It is sort of random. Like you'll just be in an area and they'll be like, "There's a fire elemental forming out of the ground," and you ever join it together, and then everybody that's in the area will just all start attacking this. Or there might be an invasion that goes on inside a temple that you're in, or you may just be involved in like trying to find things in an area and collecting things and bringing them back. They sound like missions, but again, they're happening dynamically in the game, and you can either participate in them or you can ignore them. They make no difference to the overall storyline of the game. It's just that the world is very alive and animate because it seems like all of this stuff is happening while you're there.
Yeah.
Well, I got to say, it's so funny when like just a monster or a giant's just walking down, minding his own business, and then just suddenly, 20 players just, charge across the hill, just kicking the shit out of him, just to get experience points.
Well, it did seem to me to be an interesting way to kind of bring people together, if not in any kind of social way, but at least in, like, a gameplay way, and it was, while not extremely difficult, it was at least very impressive. And a lot of times these world events would happen, and suddenly you would see anywhere between 20 or 30 or 40 people just kind of run off of one side of the screen, and everybody would cluster around this giant new enemy that had appeared on the field to basically try to take them down. And then, once it was over, everybody kind of went about their business. They were just like, all right, Godzilla's dead, everybody. Back to work. I need to get 5 more goat pelts. I'll be right back.
That just reminds me of the very early days of Ultima Online, when they weren't really sure what they were, doing, and the monsters would come out of a monster generator. And there were so many people playing the game when it first started that the monster generator was just surrounded by people, and so like a spider would appear and everybody would just club it, and then it would die. and so just the monsters never got anywhere. They just never got into the game world.
Nice. Well, I see, Nick. I want to come back to you and kind of get your impressions, because I think this is the first MMO that I've ever had you play. But Kevin, I did want to ask you. I mean, we played Secret World and Knights of the Old Republic, and I know you played a couple of other MMOs out there. How would you feel that this? It sounds like from some of the stuff that I've seen, some of the stuff that I've read, like they've really gone a long way to kind of break the traditional MMO tank DPS healer formula, to the point where you don't need to have somebody that's dedicated to healing. You don't need to have necessarily aggro management. And I feel like in a lot of ways, sometimes if that's handled incorrectly, it can dilute your class to the point where it doesn't really it feels like everybody's pretty much the same. How did you feel? I mean, how did you feel like that worked out in the game?
I didn't see. I agree with you. I wonder sometimes while playing this if it's going to maybe not appeal to the really hardcore player, because there's parts that may seem a little bit too easy, and and I just think that this game has has lowered many barriers to entry to a lot of playing these MMO games, because you're not having to do like a look for a group all the time in order to like do stuff. You can kind of, progress your own way, but you can also go back and help lower levels if you want. And it scales you down so that your level is lower and matches the person you're with, so that you can have fun playing these old missions again too. And the game strikes that balance, and you don't have to have the perfect team to go on a mission. Everybody is powerful. Everybody can participate, and everybody can just pick up and join in and have a good time. It just, it's Guild Wars. I mean, the name kind of goes with it. It just has a much more social aspect to it that other MMOs great. And I'm just really sad that you mentioned the Secret Wars, because that brain cell had died in my brain, and I had completely forgotten that I had ever played it. But now you've reminded me.
Sorry. Well, Nick, I tell you what, this is ostensibly, I think, the first time you've gotten into one of these MMOs. Tell me a little bit about your experience with the game. I mean, what did you think? This is kind of the get a new perspective on things, and not tainted by all that it's an MMO and blah 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 kind of cynicism that some of us have.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I was partially intimidated by playing an MMO, because usually I've tried to avoid them. Mm-hmm. I think it's got to do with the World of Warcraft's reputation of how people are acting towards each other, and especially whenever I play a multiplayer game, such as Call of Duty or whatever, people are real dickheads in that game. But it was really surprising to see how nice some of the people were when I was playing this. I could tell, when I joined up with this team of 5 guys, that they were getting kind of frustrated, because they were asking me questions like, do you know how to make armor? Why don't you have any boots? I'm like, okay, I broke this. And I was like, come with me. And they actually took me around the villages and showed me where I could find a guy to repair my armor and to teach me new skills and stuff. And then I joined them on their quest. And that was actually when I started to have fun. Because when I first started, I just tried to play the story mode. And I got to say, I wasn't too impressed with it. I mean, it was entertaining enough, and the missions were varied enough to keep my interest, but it was really the social aspect of the game that I found most intriguing.
Okay. How, speaking of which, I mean, I never got very far in it, but Kevin and Nick, both of you guys, how is the writing and the voice acting and the characterization, all the stuff in the actual main, because every character has a main storyline, right? Kind of a la Star Wars: The Old Republic, right?
Yeah, I didn't. It was okay. I mean, if there's a weak part to this game, it's probably the overall story. You know, at least the characters in the world that I was playing. I mean, it felt very sort of
Generic.
generic or just under. You know, it didn't really have a sort of Mass Effect type of subterfuge or whatever going on. I mean, it was just we got to go defeat the bad guys. Okay, I mean it's all right. It's just that there's nothing to write home about with it here.
However, I do like the fact that on an MMORPG you have that there is the option of choices. You can actually make choices that will affect the storyline. So I'll decide to either save a village from being poisoned by this group of bandits, or I could choose to save my best friend in the game. And I really like that. And the more I research into it, there are many different paths you could choose throughout your own character's journey, and that's just with that race of people. And apparently there's thousands of variations, which is pretty cool.
That's the big thing about it. I mean, these zones are so different from one another that there's just this whole different world almost that separates everything. That you really feel like it's not just like the old Republic where you had the Sith and the Jedi, and there's two different things. I mean, here you have like a complete departure from each race. The cat people are completely different than the little midget people that I was. I don't know what's PC to call those guys. Small people.
Jawas.
Jawas, yeah.
Yeah. But I got to say the level design is really beautiful. I mean, I know it's an MMORPG, so the graphics aren't going to be amazing, but just this really stood out. It didn't feel to me like just another generic fantasy game, that there was something unique specifically for Guild Wars, and I really like that. Plus, the fact that you could swim underwater. I know they have that World of Warcraft, but I thought that was really cool, and all the different animals walking about and stuff, like giant iguanas and stuff.
Performance, it's really good. I mean, really good. I never really ran into that kind of MMO lag that you normally get with a game. When you start to turn and it's trying to load 50 guys' knapsacks or whatever it's doing. I mean, I really felt like this game engine is one of the best MMORPG game engines I've ever actually played.
Really, I had nothing to draw in comparison, but I definitely agree. I had no technical issues whatsoever. The game never lagged. It felt like I was just playing a simple single-player game on my PC.
All right. I guess the only other thing to maybe mention, just to folks who may be considering to get this, is they also apparently there's a system in this game which I can see some people liking and some people definitely not liking, and that is that the game essentially level caps you in certain locations. And this is apparently, I didn't get this far, but apparently, Kevin, maybe you can describe this a little bit. If you go backwards, kind of towards earlier levels, you don't get to be the level 80 badass stomping around level 1 area, killing everything with one shot and murdering all the bosses. That it kind of tiers you down so that you're never overpowered for the area of the game that you're in once you've made it to higher levels. And I mean, I can see that being the sort of thing where, me personally, I'm a big fan of letting you get all overpowered, but that's mostly in single player games and MMOs. I can see the benefit of being able to go back to level 1 and play with your friend who just started the game instead of just being some kind of massive MMO super god. I don't know. What did you guys think about that?
Yeah, I mean, exactly what you're saying. It's really to enable you to go back and help somebody that just got the game or starting off, and at the same time offer you a challenge and allow it to be fun for you as well. I mean, you're not going to be completely crippled or anything, but you're not going to be at that same god level that you were. So, you're going to have your equipment and everything, your unlocks and your magic and everything, but if that's what you have. But you're not going to be, like you're saying, just going in there and just shooting forth the power of the sun and killing all the undead in a second and then stealing the 7 experience. So
right.
Definitely a very good design decision.
Okay.
Really? I mean, I think it's lame. What's the point of leveling up if you can't kick ass?
Debate!
Well, I think you would have to think about it from the aspect, though, that what's really the purpose in going back and doing that. I mean, it's in an MMORPG, you're trying to level up and you're trying to play these games to, you're not really going back to find that lost treasure chest that somebody left on that one zone. I mean, you're really kind of playing these games to progress with other people. And so if you're just laying waste to everything on that earlier board, I don't know why.
Well, I mean, you could play it like this. Let's say that you're fighting a bunch of centaurs that you defeated early on in the game, and you're with a player who's just started. Let him take a couple of hits so he gets those experience points, and then just kill the shit out of them. It doesn't really matter. Like you said, everyone pitches in, and they get exactly the same experience points. So
yeah,
it's just a lot quicker that way.
On the other hand, there's some definite, you don't want. I mean, I could see how the idea of letting everybody get experience off of something, you have to have something to counterbalance that, which I think this leveling system does well, because otherwise then you just have level 80 sitting in the starting area and just, you could have somebody essentially walk you to the end of the game all the way up to the max level by sitting there and just, you hit once, then they kill. You hit once, then they kill, and just grind out all the levels that you would need to get up there. Plus, I don't know. I mean, the thing is, I feel like one of the big stumbling blocks in a lot of MMOs is getting into a situation where your friends can't play with you, where your friends haven't been playing the game for very long, and you're so far beyond them that you try to go back and play with them, and it's just like, either you're not getting any XP, or they're not getting any XP, or nothing is really working out real well, and you're just standing around watching them beat a boss. And at least in this way, you can all fight together, you can all have a good time, in addition to, without having to start a new character. So but
there's nothing. Well, I was just about to say, you can just start a new character if that's what you want. If you want to have the same experience as your friends who've just started playing the game, then do that. But let me keep my, godlike Superman if I want to go and just go back to the beginning of the early levels and just kill things.
I think it's a design decision. I mean, one of the biggest problems with MMOs is the fact that, like, you'll be playing with somebody. Like, if you and Jeff were playing, and you guys would sit down, you guys would both start off, and let's say you're both like level 15. It took you like a week to get there or whatever. Then you say, okay, well, I got to go to work the next day. Knowing Jeff, he'd probably be like level 25 the next time you guys would sit down together that evening. So now what are you going to do? Jeff's already completely lapped you. He's in a whole nother zone. If he comes back, he's just going to do what? He's going to just kill everything. It's boring for him. I mean, at some point, you have to make a design decision and say, I'm going to allow, one way or the other. And all the other MMOs in history have allowed you to be super powerful. And honestly, it really doesn't work the way you think it does. It's not like as gloriously fun as you think it would be.
I've done that.
That's a good point. You changed my mind. That's actually a really good point.
Yeah, I mean, I've actually done that in other games, and I ended up just watching a friend of mine kill everything so I could get to the end of a quest and turn it in for XP, and it was just like, okay. Well, so we've talked a lot about a lot of the different things of the game. Is there anything big that you guys had problems with? I mean, we've mostly been it sounds like most of the stuff we've been talking about has been real positive. So, did you guys run into anything while you're playing the game that would that you felt was a drag, or that you wish was different, or that seemed to be holding the game back at all?
Yeah, MMORPG slang. I have no idea what the hell these guys are saying to each other half the time when they're talking in like this text language. Like, you'll say, Nick, C4MT. Like, what? It's like, I'm trying to save time by not typing it all out. It's like, I can't understand. I just started playing the game, okay? Like, there should be, like, a manual or something just before you play the game explaining what some of these phrases mean.
I'm going to buy you a copy of The Idiot's Guide to Internet Acronyms and send it to you.
I have no real complaints about anything. I mean, there is this weird sort of thing where you get queued up into zones and servers, and it's not really an issue or a problem. It seems like I think what's happening is just like you go into a very crowded zone, it'll tell you that you're in a holding queue, and you can continue to play the game. And I think you're playing the game locally somehow, or you're playing on another server rather than the master server that you should be on. And then eventually it says, do you want to join the server now or wait? And you can join the server, and nothing really changes unless you're like right in the middle of combat. Mm-hmm. Then that combat will stop. But otherwise, everything's the same, and everything just carries on. So I just think it's some sort of weird caching, queuing mechanic that goes on. It's a little strange, but it's not like really much of a problem. It's a little awkward because you don't really quite know what's the right thing to do or anything. It doesn't really explain that to you.
Are there different people in that overflow server than there are in the main server? I mean, do you see like a different set of people there than you do in the main server?
Yeah, you do. So I guess these other people are also holding. I mean, when you get over to the main one, then you see a lot more people. You know, so it's interesting. Again, it's not really a big deal. I mean, I ran into it when the game launched. The last few times I played it, though, I was not having that problem. So either they beefed up the server, or a bunch of people just stopped playing. I don't know which.
Okay. Well, guys, give me some reviews. What do you think?
I guess I would say full price.
Okay.
I would just say that it's probably one of the best MMOs I've ever played. Again, though, it still basically comes down to those fundamental combat things where even though you have all these different options, you're still pressing 1, 2, 3, to determine what you're doing. You really don't have that sort of real-time gamepad experience. So I'm still I'm holding out my better than sex for one day when somebody makes that game for me.
Okay. Nick, how about you?
Well, I've never really been interested in playing MMORPGs, and to be honest, this game really hasn't changed my mind, but I do recognize all the good points about this game, and I can understand why people like it so much and what makes it better than, let's say, World of Warcraft and Star Wars The Old Republic. So on that basis, I'm going to have to give it a full price.
Fair enough. All right. Well, 2 full prices. There you go. I tell you what, though, guys, I was thinking about it while we're talking about it, and so we've gone from $15 a month to play an MMO to free to play MMOs. I'm still waiting for the day when they pay me to play their MMOs. Like $10 every week. Just please, somebody play this. We gotta keep the lights turned on.
That'll probably be World of Warcraft in a short amount of time, I bet you.
Come on, guys, we'll send you free Coke. No, it's cool. It's cool.
Now is the time. Claim your destiny. Forge your legend.